In the headlines, coalition agent wants the Court of Appeal to overturn the full ruling of the Chief Justice Roxanne George. The Secretary General of the powerful OAS says Guyana is being held hostage by those who want to change the results of the March 2 elections. 2 construction workers are injured in an accident at the COVID-19 hospital. Police launched probe into rape allegations against Ruel Johnson. And in sport, the British High Commissioner expects a competitive series decider between West Indies and England. With the news, I'm Avenash Ramzan. Thank you for joining us. We start off by telling you that the APNU-AFC agent, Masinga Jones, has made good on her promise to appeal Monday's judgment by Guyana's Chief Justice Acting Roxanne George and has filed her notice of appeal with the appellate court less than 24 hours after the oral judgment was handed down. The APNU-AFC now wants the Court of Appeal to overturn the entire ruling of the Chief Justice. Kurt Campbell reports.
Masinga Jones, in the application filed by her attorney, Mayor Robertson, is complaining against the entirety of the judgment on several grounds, including that Chief Justice Roxanne George erred in law when she ruled that the issues raised were res judicata. The Chief Justice, in her definitive ruling, said that the Guyana Elections Commission must declare the results of the elections of March 2, 2020 only from the data garnered from the national vote recount, and that any irregularities would have to be addressed in an elections petition. She also ruled that the Chief Elections Officer is subject to the direction and control of the Commission in submitting his report to GCOM. The ruling, which has been described as comprehensive and detailed, went against what Jones and by extension the APNU-AFC coalition is now challenging in this appeal, where they want the results to be declared using the 10 declarations from returning officers, including the fraudulent report of claimant Mingo, which was prepared to hand them a victory. But Mingo's declarations were dismissed by the Chief Justice in her ruling. Jones and her attorney Robertson now wants the Court of Appeal to rule that the Chief Justice erred in law in handing down her ruling and wants the entire judgment overturned and set aside. The case management for the appeal has been set for 3 p.m. tomorrow. Although the Caribbean Court of Justice ruled 2 weeks ago that the data from the recount needs to be used to declare a winner, the coalition and its agents continue to push for the declaration to be made using concocted figures to hand them a victory. Since the ruling on Monday, and despite calls for a swift declaration, the 7-member GCOM has not met to decide on the way forward. GCOM's chairman, former Judge Claudette Singh, has said repeatedly in the past that once court actions have been filed, she will await the outcome of those proceedings before she acts. In this vein, the filing of this appeal is seen as a further delay in bringing the almost 5-month elections process to an end. The recount shows that the main opposition, People's Progressive Party, won the elections by over 15,000 votes. In wake of this, and despite calls from numerous international organizations, President David Granger has refused to concede.
Guyana is being held hostage by those who want to change the results of the March 2 elections. Luis Almagro, the Secretary General of the powerful Organization of American States, the OAS, said on Tuesday as the world again called on President David Granger to leave office and allow the swearing in of Dr. Irfan Ali as the lawfully elected president. The Permanent Council of the OAS met on Tuesday as pressure mounts on Granger to stop putting obstacles in the way to prevent the declaration of a national vote recount, which showed the coalition APNU-AFC was defeated by over 20,000 votes. The meeting was held through online conference, and Foreign Minister Dr. Karen Cummings had Attorney General Basil Williams by her side as they sought to defend the actions of the coalition. It was Granger who deemed the Caribbean community CARICOM as the most important interlocutor in the process, but shockingly deemed the CARICOM report and the team as a fallacy. Dr. Cummings went on to try to get the former Attorney General Anil Nandalal to withdraw his statement regarding Granger, saying that he was imputing dishonesty to the president. Nandalal had said that the president was hiding behind platitudinous and sanctimonious statements while using his minions to dismantle the recount. Nandalal did not offer an apology.
Guyana has remained hostage of the electoral officials who insist on altered results, just despite the fact that the CCJ, the maximum legal authority, has demanded that the report be prepared using the recount results. Faced with this very serious situation, the General Secretariat repeats its position as presented on the communique of April 15th, requesting that the electoral process conclude and that the people that acted partially, be it for specific or party interests, be excluded, that all of those who have made obstacle to the conclusion of this party be excluded from the process. This has led to a crisis of trust in the institutions. This is a historic turning point for Guyana. Without a doubt, this will define its future. Today, the authorities need to choose between two ways forward, either to strengthen democracy or to fall in a very difficult situation. It's a moment to find great leaders, those who can leave aside their specific interests, leave aside the inter-party disputes in order to safeguard the system as a whole. This needs to end.
It's not serving the institutions, it is not serving the democracy. It is not serving President Granger.
The elections are held to determine the will of the people. And once the people's wishes are clearly stated, they must be upheld. The people of Guyana have been patient for much longer than can reasonably be expected, while they await the result of a process that was, by all accounts, well conducted on election day. They must wholeheartedly be commended for this. They deserve a peaceful transition of government based on the majority vote as reflected in the recount and in support of democracy and the rule of law. Allow me, please, finally, to make this comment. A litmus test of any democracy is the peaceful and orderly transfer of power if that is so ordained by the express will of the people. Sadly, Guyana has failed that test. The people of Guyana are not to be blamed. They expressed their will in a commendably peaceful and orderly manner on March 2nd. But the pernicious actions of a few have wreaked considerable damage to Guyana's image and reputation. Even if this debacle is soon and satisfactorily resolved, it will perhaps take a generation and significant institutional reforms for that damage to be fully repaired. The people of Guyana did not deserve this.
Guyana is a democratic nation and intends to remain so. Further, there is no breakdown in law and order in Guyana. Guyana continues to remain a peaceful, law-abiding state. And throughout its lengthy process, which has been guided by several constitutional provisions, the people of Guyana have remained patient, calm, and peaceful. The international community should therefore also be patient and not seek to influence unduly the constitutional and legal processes which are currently ongoing in Guyana.
The returning officer refused to comply with the directions of the Chief Justice and again declared wrong results. And it was then that an agreement was arrived at between President David Granger and leader of the opposition, Bharat Jagdeo, brokered by CARICOM, presided over by Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados. And under that agreement, there was to be a national recount of all the ballots cast so as to deal with that controversy that erupted. Mr. Granger went into that agreement, and immediately after that, while he is hiding in the background and committing himself to the world and to CARICOM to do this recount, he began to use his minions to dismantle that very agreement that he entered into. So he has 3 commissioners at the GCOM, and they refuse. Although GCOM itself agreed to carry out the recount, the 3 commissioners never gave their accord to that decision. Instead, they conspired with one of their candidates, and they went to the court to stop the recount from taking place. That case went to the High Court, they lost. They appealed to the Court of Appeal of Guyana, and the Court of Appeal ruled that the GCOM has the power to do that recount, and the Court of Appeal essentially endorsed that recount to take place. So they were forced to go to the recount, and they participated in the recount. President Granger, again, as he usually does, expresses his platitudes and made sanctimonious declarations to be bound by this national recount exercise. They participated fully, and when they realized that they were losing the recount, they started to fabricate these allegations of dead and migrant people voting.
I just want to make 2 points. I wanted Mr. Nandalal to actually retract his statement because he was imputing dishonesty in the president, and as a foreign minister, I will not condone such behavior. So I would be happy if he retracts his statement, imputing that the president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana is dishonest. That's the first point. And secondly, we spoke about the CARICOM's report. Of course, in our estimation, it was not a representative sample. And at the end of it all, they have said it's reasonably credible. I don't know is that something is credible or not credible. So I just want to put that before the 18%, which is not a representative sample. They didn't stay to the conclusion. And so it's really unfair to make such a general, it's a fallacy, generalization of a process which they haven't concluded.
Every member state of the OAS cares about Guyana and its people. None of us takes a political side in the elections impasse. Our only interest is the preservation of democracy and the rule of law. It is democracy that is now threatened, with implications to the Caribbean region and our hemisphere. It is democracy that we must defend and ensure is delivered. The troubling situation in Guyana should be kept under this Council's review and returned to this Council for action should the Secretary General consider it necessary.
If the situation in Guyana persists, the Permanent Council of the OAS could meet again to take action against Guyana. As the United States warned, Guyana faces international ostracization if the recount results are not used, and the leaders of any government sworn in any other result would not be able to travel and would be subject to sanctions. The Guyana Police Force has launched a probe into allegations of rape leveled against author Ruel Johnson, who has been a fierce critic of the David Granger government and until recently served as the government's cultural policy advisor. Johnson is currently employed with the Kaieteur News as an editor. No charges have been made against Johnson. The allegation against Johnson was made by a former girlfriend. She claims that many years ago she was given alcohol by Johnson, and when she was drunk, he had sex with her without her consent. Johnson has denied the allegations. Johnson was asked to report to the Alberton Police Station in Georgetown, and he cooperated on Tuesday. The allegations were made known to him, and Johnson was asked to give a statement. He was later released from custody on his own recognizance. 2 construction workers on Tuesday morning suffered injuries about the body after a shed collapsed due to heavy winds at a COVID-19 hospital at Liliendal, which is currently under renovations. Isnel Patwa has details.
The injured men are Deodat Prasad and Alexander Rojas. They are employed with Ivor Allen Construction, one of the companies working on the infectious disease hospital at Liliendal, East Coast, Demerara. Public Relations Officer for the Ministry of Public Health, Terence Esibu, told the newsroom that the shed was being demolished at the time of the incident. It was being used as a shelter and a place for the workers to have lunch, but since the construction works are almost complete, it was being dismantled. The newsroom understands that Prasad and Rojas were under the shed at the time when it collapsed. Esibu explained that heavy winds caused the roof of the shed to collapse on the men. Rojas sustained severe injuries to the head and was taken to the Georgetown Public Hospital, while Prasad was treated and sent away for minor injuries at a private hospital in the city. Prasad has been working with the company since 1978, and Rojas recently joined the company. The newsroom understands that Rojas' wife is also hospitalized at the Georgetown Hospital. The couple lately had a baby. Meanwhile, when contacted, Ivor Allen said the focus is getting the best medical care for the employees. Retrofitting of the Liliendahl facility that once operated as the Ocean View Hotel started sometime in April this year, and once completed, will be well positioned to control other respiratory and multi-resistant forms of infections, as well as all categories of COVID-19 patients. The cost for retrofitting the facility was pegged at $1 billion Guyana dollars. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isinelo Patwo.
When the newsroom returns, political parties and the private sector urged David Granger to withdraw his appeal against the Chief Justice's ruling and to concede defeat at the polls. Stay tuned. Leader of the United Republican Party, the URP, Dr. Vishnu Bandhu, has joined the list of political parties calling for an end to the prolonged electoral process. In an interview with the newsroom on Tuesday, he said Guyana, and by extension its citizens, are suffering as a result of the election's impasse. The URP leader further called for more sanctions to be imposed on agents of the incumbent APNU-AFC government and the Guyana Elections Commission, GCOM.
URP stance is very clear. We do not think that individual people, individual person per se, should go to court and take this whole country like a ransom. We are going back and forth all the time with personal people who are representing the APNU-AFC, are claiming they are independent and things like that, and they keep on doing this. Guyana is suffering. Guyana is in pain. Guyana need to move forward. What we are doing here, it's very unfair for a handful of people to hold this country at ransom. That's what we have been doing. Now the judge ruled in favor of Cadet Singh and the GCOM and all of us on the recount. Now you're still telling me that you want to go to appeal court again? We are going wrong and wrong all the time because a handful of people are not getting their way. Right? It has shown clearly by the recount that the PPP won this election. Right? We are not supporting the PPP. We are supporting for a free and fair election. People must not misunderstood the URP. The URP is here to see justice done. And if it goes that way, and it's in favor of the PPP and its justice, well, then we stood up there. That doesn't mean that we are supporting the PPP. We do not have faith in GCOM. And we are on record for that. Nobody else say that. Because I don't know if everybody are fair or what, but we see the operation in them. When we contest and the way they operate, we saw it clearly what happened. Right? So we do not have faith in things, and this is why we are calling on the State Department, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, to bring down sanctions in each and every one of them who are trying to undermine democracy in Guyana. And not only from the APNU, PNC, AFC, but everyone, even in the GCOM, they examine all these commissioners and let us examine them, and if they have to go down because undermining democracy, not coming out to meetings and things like that, they should be sanctioned. If their families are supporting them, the family should be sanctioned too. Right? We must set an example in Guyana and putting some of these people behind bars. Otherwise, Guyana would not go forward. Politicians who are undermining true democracy must go behind bars. The GCOM who are doing the same thing must go behind bars.
And the Liberty and Justice Party, the LJP, on Tuesday issued a statement calling on the APNU-AFC coalition to respect the ruling of the High Court and end the ongoing charade to delay declaration of the election's results. Bibi Khatoon joins us now.
Chief Justice Roxanne George on Monday ruled that the national vote recount is valid and no other figures can be used to declare the results of the March 2nd elections. Several political parties have joined in calling on the incumbent APNU-AFC to concede defeat and allow the results to be declared and the new government to be sworn in. In a statement on Monday evening, the Liberty and Justice Party, led by Lennox Schumann, lashed out at the government for hiding behind court cases to delay the declaration of the results. Schumann called on President David Granger to stop lying to his supporters and end the ongoing charade. The LJP candidate said, and I quote, "We call on Mr. Granger to stop lying to his supporters, stop torturing this nation, call off his dogs of war, and end this charade." End of quote. Further, he called on the chairperson of GCOM, Justice Retired Claudette Singh, to take a decisive step to conclude the process. The APNU plus AFC has indicated that an appeal will be filed, but the LGP noted that the approach to the Court of Appeal is a waste of the court's and the country's time. Schumann said, and I quote, "We are hopeful that a long overdue courtesy can be given to the nation that awaits the conclusion of the elections and delays no further in recognizing the right of every Guyanese by ensuring that the sovereignty enshrined in Article 9 of the Constitution is respected." End of quote. Bibi Khatoon, Newsroom.
Thank you, Bibi. The Citizenship Initiative, TCI, on Tuesday called on political parties to abide by the ruling of the High Court and facilitate the declaration of a winner of the 2020 elections. In a statement, TCI said the ruling was clear and concise and parties should stop wasting the court's time. The new movement, that's TNM, which also contested elections 4 months ago, said the selfish behavior of the incumbent APNU-AFC coalition only adds to the demise of Guyana and its citizens. TNM said it is time President David Granger put Guyana first as persons need to move on and move forward with their lives. The party urged the GCOM chair, Justice Retired Claudette Singh, to convene a meeting of the commission and move forward with the process since there is no injunction blocking her. TNM also reiterated calls for the dismissal of the Chief Elections Officer, Keith Lowenfield, who has made several attempts to have the APNU-AFC declare the winner of the elections. Guyana's Private Sector Commission, the PSC, in welcoming Monday's ruling by the Chief Justice Acting, Roxanne George, said it expects the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, former Judge Claudette Singh, to move swiftly ahead with declaring the winner of the March 2, 2020 elections. Kurt Campbell joins us with details.
The judgment handed down by Chief Justice Acting Roxanne George in the case of Masinga Jones versus the Guyana Elections Commission, GCOM, is being described as comprehensive and detailed by the Private Sector Commission. The PSC said it was particularly pleased with the manner in which Justice George ruled on the matter of the validity of the recount and on the relationship between the Chief Elections Officer and GCOM. It now calls on Chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, former Judge Claudette Singh, to declare the winner of the March 2nd, 2020 elections without further delay. The Private Sector Commission therefore wishes to encourage the Chairman of GCOM to sanction no further delay in arriving at the declaration of the elections results from the recount and to move with all due haste to the swearing in of the newly elected President of Guyana, the statement from the Commission said. These calls are being made even as the incumbent APNU-AFC coalition has given oral notice that they intend to appeal the decision for delaying the almost 5-month-old elections process. The PSC said it noted that the Chief Justice specifically ruled that GCOM must declare the results of the elections only from the data of the recount and that the view expressed that any irregularities would have been addressed by an elections petition. The coalition wants the results to be declared using the 10 declarations from returning officers, including the fraudulent report of Claimant Mingo, which was prepared to hand them a victory. But Mingo's declarations were dismissed by the Chief Justice in her ruling. The Private Sector Commission has also noted that the Chief Justice has ruled that the Chief Elections Officer is subject to the direction and control of the Commission in submitting his report to GCOM. But the coalition maintains that the CEO, Keith Lowenfield, is not subject to the direction of GCOM and supported his previous reports where he single-handedly invalidated hundreds of thousands of votes to deliver a false victory for the coalition. The Caribbean Court of Justice ruled 2 weeks ago that the data from the recount needed to be used to declare a winner. The recount shows that the main opposition, People's Progressive Party, won the elections by over 15,000 votes. In wake of this, and despite calls from numerous international organizations, President David Granger has refused to concede. Over to you, Avenash.
Still on elections matters, the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce on Tuesday officially wrote to President David Granger, pointing out that it has been 141 days since the March 2, 2020 elections. Penned by the GCCI President Nick Boyer, the letter to Granger made it clear that the Guyanese people are tired and would like the elections process to come to an end. The GCCI in its letter told Granger that he has the power to withdraw the appeal filed by his agent, Msinga Jones, challenging the ruling of the Chief Justice. The GCCI further told Granger that he also has the power to ask the Attorney General not to support any appeal from the government side either. The GCCI further noted that there is very little chance of success in the appeal court because, according to the Chief Justice's decision, Jones would be asking the Court of Appeal to overturn their own statements and points raised in the Ulita Moore ruling. Worse yet, even if by some miracle Jones succeeds at the Court of Appeal, the absurdity of her lawyers arguing to the Caribbean Court of Justice judges that those same judges said that the recount order was illegal will shame Guyana in Caribbean jurisprudence, the GCCI told Granger. They further urged him to concede defeat at the polls, as it is the only way that saves face and allows a dignified outcome for all. Passengers can be fined between $50,000 to $3 million Guyana dollars and jailed for up to 5 years if they breach the COVID-19 regulations stipulated by the Guyana Civil Aviation Authority when the airports reopen. Director General of the authority, Egbert Field, told Newsroom that the airports will be reopened to diplomats and foreign nationals on August 28, but there is no application for commercial flights thus far. Bibi Katoon reports.
The Guyana Civil Aviation Authority on Monday issued a number of rigid public health guidelines and regulations to airlines, ground handlers, and airport authorities ahead of the reopening of airports in August. The regulations include fines of $50,000 for refusal to wear masks and $500,000 if passengers breach other rules. According to the regulations seen by the Newsroom, if a person acts out in a manner which endangers an aircraft or any person therein commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $3 million and to imprisonment for 5 years. Some persons have commented that the fines are harsh, but Director General of the authority, Egbert Field, told the Newsroom that they are necessary to ensure safety.
I consider them life-saving because unless you set measures which are firm and which people will respect, individuals will continue to behave in a way unbecoming of the measures that should be in place. The fact that right now, even though there is a curfew, you see people wandering all around after curfew and not sticking to the curfew time. I strongly believe it's because the penalties are not exacted from individuals when they behave in that manner. We've got to remember that this is a life-threatening disease or virus, and we have got to be firm when we put things in place and they are not adhered to.
There are other fines included in the regulations, such as a $1 million fine for interfering with the discharge of a crew member's functions or using threatening words. Those fines are accompanied by 2 and 3 years imprisonment, respectively. Field told the Newsroom that the airports will reopen to limited flights from August 28, but even in this case, there will be no commercial flights. Airlines, he said, have not yet applied to recommence flights as they await a possible decrease in COVID-19 cases in their destinations.
We are not open to limited flights as yet until August the 28th, I think the 28th of August, going on to August month 10. I can't remember the exact date. Then we will be opening to foreigners, foreign workers, and diplomats. Right now, we do not have scheduled for any airlines. So if even we open, you would not have scheduled operations going on. because no airline has applied to conduct scheduled operations as yet. I guess they are looking at the environment to see how the graph curves, if it plateaus or if it climbs sharply, meaning the rate of infection within the countries.
A system will remain in place where all passengers will be required to present a negative result from a PCR COVID-19 test taken 7 days prior to travel, except children under 12 years old accompanied by an adult who tested negative. According to the regulations, if any passenger presents a false negative test, they will be fined $250,000. The extended regulations also take into consideration cleaning of airport facilities and aircraft, crowds at airports, security, dealing with suspected COVID-19 cases on a flight, and other protocols. Operators can also be fined up to $500,000 upon summary conviction for negligence and non-compliance if aircraft are not cleaned properly. Meanwhile, flights will be scheduled so as to avoid overcrowding at the airports. Bibi Katun, Newsroom.
Mabruma in Region 1 is now one of the COVID-19 hotspots in the country, but the mayor, Chris Pang, told Newsroom that residents cannot survive lockdown without support from the government. Mabruma has recorded 11 COVID-19 cases so far, with a 10-year-old boy among the cases. Isnella Patwa reports.
Of the 11 confirmed COVID-19 cases in Mabruma, Region 1, 2 persons have so far recovered. Weeks after the town confirmed positive COVID-19 cases, there is no restriction to the movement of planes and ferries, which continue to travel back and forth with passengers. The town's mayor, Chris Pang, during a telephone interview with the Newsroom Tuesday, said the majority of the population is unemployed and will not survive a lockdown without assistance. The mayor further explained that the National COVID-19 Task Force is asking residents to fill out digital forms for assistance, and this, he says, is difficult. And as such, the town is operating as per normal.
Here, you have majority of the persons are unemployed who actually look for survival on a day-to-day basis. So we just can't close down the place, and persons out there who have to fill up an electronic form, I don't know, 4 pages or something like that. I think it was reported.
So is there a...
Just to get a little assistance. So no, there's no lockdown.
The mayor said the residents are not using face masks, even though the council recently distributed hundreds of it. He further noted that the region is also dealing with an influx of Venezuelan migrants.
Actually, what I would want to encourage the people of Mabruma is to continue to adhere to the guidelines set out by the Ministry of Health and follow the basic, the social distancing, wear masks whenever you go into a crowded area or you enter the public transportation and so on, and wash your hands as much as possible and protect yourself, also your family and the community in general.
Meanwhile, another COVID-19 hotspot in Region 1 is Muruka. According to data released by the Ministry of Public Health on July 20th, Muruka recorded a total of 91 COVID-19 cases. The recoveries, however, are commendable, with 43 persons who have recovered within a month. 2 persons have died from the region due to COVID-19 complications. Other indigenous communities in Regions 7, 8, and 9 have also been identified as COVID-19 hotspots. Reporting for the Newsroom, I am Isinella Patwo.
We now bring you an update from the Ministry of Public Health on Guyana's COVID-19 cases.
Now here is Guyana's update. The total number of tests done is 5,099. The number of persons tested is 3,769. And 3,498 persons are negative. As of the 21st of July 2020, of the 71 tests done, the number of positives is now 339, with 19 COVID-related deaths. The number of active cases in institutional isolation is 157. 19 persons are in institutional quarantine, and 2 persons are in the COVID ICU. To date, 163 persons have recovered, And we wish to express our thanks to our health workers for the high level of care tendered to all our COVID patients and encourage them to continue providing this quality service to our citizens. Fellow Guyanese, I wish to give you a visual of the incidence rate per region per 100,000 population. Region 1 has had 98 cases, with 363 cases per 100,000 population. Region 4 has had 120 cases, with 38 cases per 100,000 population. Region 7, 56 cases, with 276 cases per 100,000 population. And Region 9, 18 cases, with 74 cases per 100,000 population. Even though the numbers in Region 4 are higher, you are on average 9.5 times more likely to be infected in Region 1 than in Region 4, and you are 7 times more likely to get infected in Region 7 than in Region 4. And this is because of the concentration of infections by population size in Regions 1 and 7 are both higher than in Region 4. Hence, we have not yet eased the curfew restrictions in Regions 1 and 7. The next graph on your screen displays the active cases by region as of July 18, 2020. You will note that the regions with the highest percentage of cases are numbers 1 and 7. But attention, nonetheless, must be focused on the other regions in the graph, particularly Region 9, where their cases have been spiking in the last 2 weeks. I wish to draw to your attention that July has been significant, with Region 1 reporting 5 cases, Region 4, 4 cases, Region 7, 15 cases, and Region 9, 6 cases. It is critical for us to monitor in the coming weeks the evolution of the incidents in all regions, especially Region 9, which shares the border with Brazil, which is now the epicenter of Latin America. It is likely that cross-border movement may have taken place, hence the need for intensive case surveillance and case tracking. I plead with you not to tire of wearing your mask, washing your hands, and staying 6 feet apart. These simple activities are the key to protecting ourselves and others. The ministry continues to applaud our frontline workers and our staff at the National Reference Lab for their unstinting service to the citizens of Guyana. Bravo.
When the newsroom returns, the financial, weather, and bird reports along with sport. Stay tuned.